Voila. Yeah, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our Swiss Resource Capital virtual roadshow today with Aztec Minerals. And you see already myself and also Bradford Cooke, the chairman of Aztec Minerals. Fantastic to see you, Brad, and looks like our connection is stable. Welcome and good morning to Vancouver.
Yes, thank you.
Hope you're doing well.
All is good here.
Fantastic, great. So already people are checking in, and let me see how that looks like here. Yes, fantastic. Yeah, welcome to everybody. My name is Jochen Steiger. I'm the founder and CEO of Swiss Resource Capital and also the chief editor and founder of Commodity-TV and Rohstoff-TV. And we want to provide you with, through our virtual roadshows, the chance, to listen and also to bring up questions directly to the CEOs of our company. And as said today, it's Aztec Minerals, and we are really happy already. Our 30 people have checked in so far, so we give it another 2 minutes until we start. Before we start, just some general information. Of course, we are fully complying with the DSVGO law and the data security laws in Europe, but also Switzerland and England, and nobody can see your name nor your email address. You only can see us, of course. And if you want to bring up questions, please use the chat function to your right side. It's the third button from the top in the gray vertical bar. And you can type in questions here, and that would be, of course, highly appreciated if you do so, as it makes, of course, a lot of sense when we can, penetrate Brad with a lot of good questions. Yeah, Brad, until we are waiting for some more people, it's just 1 minute after 5, and it takes always 2-3 minutes until everybody is in. Of course, the question of all questions, what do you think about the silver market today?
Well, it's a good place to start. I mean, gold is doing what everybody thinks it should do. It's leading the way. It's making new highs. We'll bump into some resistance in the gold chart here within the next $100 or so, but between here and 1880, there's not a whole lot. Silver's a little bit different. You know, gold after the March panic fully recovered everything that it lost from the peak in February in 10 trading days. Silver is still just trying to get back to where it was in February. It's plateaued at around $18. Nice little move today. And that's typical. You know, gold leads, silver follows. Gold is a monetary metal. Silver is treated like an industrial metal until people remember its monetary value. And it moves like I call it a slingshot move. That it falls behind and then it catches up, and then it falls behind and then it catches up. So we're in that catch-up phase now. But we have a lot of catching up to do because the ratio before this whole thing started this year was 85-1. It's currently 99-1, and it went to 125-1. So we've recovered from 125. The next recovery is from 99 to 85.
Okay, so lots of room for silver, and I just saw it at Kitco at $18.10. So we love to see the 18, right? Looks much better. Exactly. Super. Okay, so it's 5:03 here on my watch, and I think we're going to start. I bring up the presentation now, Brad, and I would say the floor is yours.
Lovely. Thank you again, Jochen. And welcome, everybody, to this webinar on Aztec Minerals Corp. I'm the founder and chairman. I do have a full-time day job running Endeavour Silver Corp, the silver miner. But this is a private company. Aztec was a private company for many years. And we had an opportunity to bring it public about 3 years ago. Joy Wilkins is our CEO. He apologizes. He can't be with us today. He's actually working in the field. And he asked if I could sub in and present the company on his behalf. So Aztec Minerals, elephant hunting in North America. We have 2 cornerstone assets in the company, a porphyry gold copper discovery in Sonora, Mexico, and a CRD silver lead zinc gold potential in Arizona. I will be making some forward-looking statements today, so you are duly cautioned. And basically, Aztec is an exploration company. It's focused on the discovery of large mineral deposits in North America. It's run by an experienced management and board who have a proven track record of creating value through discovery, development, and production. Our focus is elephant hunting in mining-friendly jurisdictions. We'll come back to that theme. The company recently made a very exciting gold discovery in Mexico, virgin gold copper porphyry discovery at its Cervantes project with drill holes up to almost 0.8 grams of gold over 160 meters in width. Very attractive valuation at this time, with 41 million shares out, trading at about 35 cents Canadian. It's about $14–15 million Canadian market capitalization. 37% of the shares are closely held, and it's only 3 years old. Did the IPO in 2017. This year, 2020, Aztec has multiple catalysts to create value for shareholders, with a robust news flow anticipated from both projects as this new precious metals cycle gets underway. The focus, though, will be Tombstone, where the company is now in the final stages of closing up to $3 million financing. We expect to acquire more lands at Tombstone, commence drilling here shortly in the next couple of months, and go after 2 different types of targets on the Tombstone property. We're about to finalize a joint venture agreement on our second project at Cervantes and look at evaluating the next phase of work there as well. So a busy year all in all for the company. So why elephant hunting? Very simply, major companies need large ore bodies to sustain their business. And they would prefer to rely more on mergers and acquisitions than the higher risk exploration to replace their reserves. But junior companies now dominate the exploration sector, and they have the expertise to make these new discoveries. Therefore, major companies pay premiums to acquire successful juniors. I'm going to give you an example during the presentation. And what this does is create maximum shareholder value for the junior shareholders. Why North America? I think it's pretty obvious. It's a great combination of low political risk, rule of law, reasonable tax regime, well-developed infrastructure, strong discovery potential. Still, amazingly enough, in historic districts. Why Aztec? Well, we have a management and board who have proven track records for creating value. We have a tiny valuation, $15 million, 2 highly prospective projects. I call them world-class projects, and a recent discovery, actually, on one of the projects at Cervantes. Why now? Well, the precious metals cycle clearly is underway, and the base metals will surely follow after the global economy, recovers from this pandemic. And majors, very simply, are hungry for deals. Our Tombstone project is located in southeast Arizona, about 100 kilometers southeast of Tucson, in the heart of a world-class porphyry copper district. It's also only 65 kilometers northeast of the massive Taylor CRD discovery that was taken over by South 32 in 2018 for $1.8 billion. Cervantes, our second project, is located in Sonora, Mexico, about 160 kilometers east of Hermosillo, and right on an east-west gold belt between La Colorada, La India, and Mulatos. All 3 are operating gold mines. So let's move to Tombstone. This is a geological map of southeastern Arizona showing Tucson, Benson, and the Tombstone project on trend from the Taylor discovery. Arizona Mining, back in around 2005, had the small historic Hermosa silver district, and between 2015 and 2018, Arizona Mining discovered the massive Taylor CRD deposit, 100 million tons of 10% zinc equivalent, basically zinc, lead, silver. And it attracted a $1.8 billion takeover by South 32. Tombstone is literally the nearest historic silver district on trend from Taylor, with Taylor-type potential. And this is just the story of Arizona Mining from 2015 to 2018, 25 cents to 625. That's 25 times your money in 3 years for a world-class discovery. So why do we think that Tombstone is remarkably similar to Taylor? Very simply, it's an extremely well-located property, barely an hour's drive on pavement from Tucson, Arizona. It's all patented lands. We own most of the historic mining district. Great infrastructure. You can drive right up to it. Full services, water, power, labor. This historic district produced 32 million ounces from 1878 to 1939, and mostly a cluster of high-grade oxidized silver veins with base metal byproducts and gold, and CRD deposits, mantos and vein systems. After that district closed, there was an attempt in the late 80s, early 90s to start an open pit heap leach mine on the largest of the historic mines, the contention mine. And you can see pictured here the contention pit. It's about 50 meters deep and a kilometer long. We've identified 7 prospective targets within the Wright Rocks at Tombstone related to major structures hosting both the favorable porphyric intrusions that cause these CRD deposits, cross-cutting a caldera ring structure, which is related to these CRD deposits. The main high-grade target is this bulk tonnage carbonate replacement type CRD prospect, polymetallic, typically copper, lead, zinc, silver dominated, within the Paleozoic limestone, sitting underneath the Tombstone district, just like they sat underneath the Hermosa district at Taylor. We have distinct magnetic anomalies highlighting where to go and where the strongest structures are on Tombstone. We have the contention pit showing us where the strongest structure is, because that's where all the mining was historically. There was some drilling actually in 1993 after the closure of the contention pit that returned intersections up to 1.6 grams gold, 91 grams silver over 44 meters, clearly indicating that there is bulk tonnage epithermal gold-silver mineralization remaining in the pit walls and presumably below the pit floor. Those drill holes were only 80 meters deep. The historic deep drilling for CRD mineralization was conducted by Santa Fe, a large gold company actually in the late 80s. They drilled several holes on the west property boundary, and every hole hit, mostly narrow massive sulfides, but one hole underneath the contention pit, the only hole that went underneath the contention pit, actually intersected CRD massive sulfide mineralization, 7.2 meters of 32 grams silver, 0.6% copper, and 9% combined lead zinc. This is high value polymetallic ore in drill core underneath our property. So when we talk about starting drilling again this year and going after the near surface epithermal mineralization around the pit and the deeper but higher grade CRD type mineralization, we're not actually guessing where to go. We already have drill holes to guide us where to drill next. So this is the geology map for the Tombstone property. You can see the town of Tombstone at the north end of the photograph. The contention pit is shown here, and we're in the process of picking up more land. Actually, we control the bulk of the district, but we'd like to pick up more land to the north, and that's a work in progress. From the magnetic signature, you can see almost the same story. That circular caldera ring structure with a number of sub-rings, targets within it, the cluster of pink mineralized zones up on the north end along the contention structure. And these are the main areas that we intend to focus our exploration work. If you then look at a ground survey called a Natural Source AMT survey, which was just conducted last month, you can see that we've come up with some glowing bullseyes that have never been drilled down around the 500 meter level. Remember, that pit's only 50 meters deep. So in cross section, what do we see? We see a very strong low resistivity, high chargeability anomaly sitting off to the west in an area where we have outcropping dikes and a porphyry stock. So we're thinking this is probably either a porphyry style mineralization or skarn style mineralization down around the 200 meter depth, lurking around these intrusions. But more importantly, you can see it's linked to a big balloon structure down around 500 meters with the pink core. And this is the main CRD target. We think it could be a major manto system related to the intrusion. Again, never been drilled. These are summaries of the historic drill results from the property. The USMX drill holes were consistently less than 100 meters deep. And yeah, there's some fantastic intercepts here. 44 meters of 1.6 grams gold, 91 silver. 69 meters of 1.4 grams gold, 29 silver. 38 meters of 1.7 gold, 35 silver, etc. There's strong evidence that there's significant bulk tonnage epithermal gold-silver mineralization, basically open pit, heap leach style of mineralization, remaining in and around the contention pit. In the lower table are the drill holes drilled by Santa Fe in 1989. And this was before the contention pit ever even got started. There's lots of holes showing massive sulfides, but they're very narrow. with the exception of hole 8, with 7.2 meters of massive sulfides. So we're very excited by this opportunity, initially to re-drill some of these USMX and Santa Fe holes to confirm the historic results, and then to step out from them in 50-meter intervals and try and trace both types of mineralization, shallow epithermal and deeper CRD. So next steps for the company, we're in the final stages of closing an up to $3 million financing. Excuse me. We have some lands we're trying to acquire in the month of July, and we expect to start drilling in August. Results would flow from August all the way through November. The second project I'm just going to touch briefly on, Cervantes, is equally exciting, but a little bit more challenging. It's a lot tougher to access. There is road access, but it takes over 4 hours to get there from Hermosillo. And it's an expensive place to explore compared to Tombstone. So our focus this year is on Tombstone, and we'll come back later this year to see where to drill next on Cervantes. Like Tombstone, it's a very well located property. It's got good road access. It's on private land. There's lots of water wells and grid power nearby. There's multiple prospective mineralized zones. We've done our own geological, geochemical, and geophysical surveys to identify multiple bullseye targets. There's extensive outcropping gold mineralization on the zone that we call California. It's an entire, excuse me, an entire hill of outcropping gold mineralization. For instance, we got 0.5 gram gold over 222 meters in a road cut. Clearly, there's a big system there. When we drilled it in 2018, 2019, virtually every hole intersected broad widths of porphyry-style gold and lower grade copper mineralization with intercepts up to 0.77 grams of gold over 160 meters, 0.71 grams of gold over 139 meters, and everything's open in every direction. We got excellent metallurgical recoveries from the met tests that we did on the California drill cores, ranging from 75 to 87% recoveries, showing that it too should be amenable to open pit heap leach mining. And the California target is wide open, literally on all sides and at depth. I'm going to show you some geophysical data that really puts an exclamation point on that. And the deeper, as in more than 150 meter, gold copper sulfide targets lying below what is effectively an oxidized gold cap to a porphyry system, these have yet to be drilled. So you can see that we don't just have a porphyry target, we have an entire family of porphyry targets with the outcropping porphyry intrusions shown in the stippled pink, and the black circles being the main, I think, top 11 drill targets that we've identified from geology, geochemistry, and geophysics. So California is up in the north area. Next to the southwest is Estrella, Verissima East, Verissima West, and Jacobo. 5 targets all in a row. We can confirm those targets from our surface geochemistry. Each of them shows up with some very strong soil responses. The pinky purple dots are all 0.5 gram or higher in soils, and you can see almost every target has over 0.5 gram material in soils. On the mag map, it's a bit of a different story because some of those intrusions are magnetic. Clearly, the one underneath Estrella and Jacobo, and to a certain extent California, are magnetic. But the other ones appear to be low magnetics. And when you look at the IP chargeability anomalies on our California zone, the upper left map shows a depressed area of low chargeability near surface. That's because the sulfide minerals that used to contain this gold and copper mineralization were oxidized. And so the chargeability is reduced, but the gold is still there. The copper's been leached away, but the gold is still there. Whereas if you go down to 500 meters depth, you can see a whacking great and very strong chargeability anomaly wide open to the south and to the east. If you look at the longitudinal section, lower graph on this slide, you can see the oxide cap, that blue zone that we drilled. That's the area we drilled. And underneath it, lurking underneath it, are the sulfide roots of that system, never been drilled. So there's the drill envelope with all of the copper and gold values shown on each of the drill holes, and the wide open nature of the California target. California, listed here, had numerous great intercepts, all more than 100 meters thickness, all basically half gram plus gold, and sniffs of copper. If we were to drill these holes today, the stock would be a heck of a lot higher than 35 cents, I'll tell you that. 80 meters of a gram gold, 20 meters of 2 grams gold, 43 meters of a gram gold, 62 meters of 0.9 grams gold, 32 meters of 0.9 grams gold. And if you look at the bottle test recoveries, bottle roll leach test gold recoveries, you can see that they are almost universally recoverable in heap leach except for the sulfides. So that's it basically. Our next steps are to finalize a joint venture. We own 65% of Cervantes. Kootenai Silver owns the 35%. Once we sign the joint venture agreement, then the partners are going to sit down and discuss the next steps. Clearly drilling is going to be one of the next steps, either stepping out on the already established California discovery and or testing some of the other porphyry bodies along strike. So near-term catalysts, there's lots going on this summer in Aztec Minerals. We completed the AMT survey at Tombstone. We're planning and permitting an initial drill program expected to start in August. We're trying to actually pick up some more land at Tombstone. We're finalizing a JV agreement with Kootenai, and then we'll look to announce a plan to start drilling Cervantes towards year end. Capital structure, there's currently 41 million shares out, 51 after the current financing. The current treasury is about $200,000. It'll be about $3 million after the current financing. And market capitalization is just under $15 million today. The management team and board of directors, I'm the founder and chairman. Joey Wilkins is our president and CEO, and he's currently working in the field. He has more than 24 years with Rio Tinto exploration, and he's a porphyry specialist. Mark Grubliati is a renowned geologist who received the Prospector of the Year award, and he's a member of the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame. Pat Veras made a discovery called Santo Domingo in Chile about 10 years ago, and ultimately sold his company far west to Capstone. And of course, we have strong people on the financial side as well. So why Aztec? Basically, we're an experienced group. We have a successful track record, a tiny market cap, 2 highly prospective projects. Tombstone, for instance, we're not guessing where to drill. We already have historic drill holes to tell us where to drill. Recent discovery at Cervantes and highly prospective CRD mineralization suggesting Taylor potential at the Tombstone project. So we would invite you to catch the Aztec stagecoach. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bradford. Fantastic. So let's come to the chat room here. There are a lot of questions. The first one is from Fritz. Is this a separate company project, or is it another feed to Endeavour Silver like El Compass was?
No, we don't see this as related to Endeavour. Obviously, I'm the chair of the company, but I don't run Aztec. And this is early stage, high risk, high reward exploration. Endeavour has its own portfolio in Chile. And so Endeavour is looking to Chile for filling up its pipeline. I think this one, being with a more likely polymetallic at Taylor and gold copper at Cervantes, is going to attract a major. I just don't know which one.
Okay. Yeah, there's already a question from an investor I personally know. He's asking if he still can participate in the private placement.
I'm not allowed to solicit.
I know, but is it still open?
It's still open.
Okay, super. I will tell him. Fantastic. Good. Yeah, then Paul from London asks, do you intend to become a producing company or simply went out after advancing the project? And he also wants to know, what is the closest existing milling facility to Tombstone?
There are a number of porphyry copper operations, very large operations within about I'd say 100-kilometer radius of Tombstone. The closest one, I believe, is the new Excelsior leach, copper leach. It's near Benson, and it's probably only less than 50 kilometers away. Neither of those would be amenable for Tombstone type ores, though. And of course, we're looking for something big that would justify its own plant. We don't envisage Aztec building the next big polymetallic mine in the southern U.S. We do envisage discovering the next major ore body.
So you can imagine that you will put in a strategic investor or joint venture, or that you even sell the whole thing.
Well, yeah, if you look at the history of Arizona mining, it was a 25-cent failure in 2015. And if you don't mind, I'll tell the story. Richard Wark is a very wealthy entrepreneur who's had a number of successes in mining, and this one looked like a failure. He launched the Hermosa Silver District in a junior called Wildcat Silver in around 2005, and between 2005 and 2010 had some very successful drilling, very high grade. I think it was around 60 million ounces, open pittable, good grade silver. But then the bad news, it was 100% refractory. They could not recover any of the silver by conventional methods. And he literally spent the next 5 years. So stock went from, say, 10 cents to $2.50, if memory serves me correctly. And then it went all the way back down to 10 cents because in the next 5 years, he went through 3 different CEOs and 3 different engineering firms trying to figure out how to build an economic mine out of an uneconomic ore body, basically the refractory silver deposit. In desperation in 2015, he hired a retired Newmont geologist named Don Taylor out of Denver to do a complete data review and come back and tell him if there was anything worth pursuing on the project, or should he just pack his bags and go home. And Don Taylor came back and said, "Are you crazy? Forget the silver. Your last 3 drill holes below the silver district intersected massive sulfides. You should be chasing the massive sulfides." And so that's exactly what he did. From 2015 to 2018, that stock went from 25 cents to 6.25. Along the way, in 2017, he did $100 million financing with South 32, positioning a strategic major for a takeout. And he received the offer in June of 2018, $1.8 billion to go away. So obviously it's a great win for the junior sector. It's a perfect model for the ideal exit for a successful junior. And I hope we're that lucky. I think we have some great opportunities, and not just Tombstone. Cervantes is not to be ignored.
Fantastic. What are the holding costs and terms on Cervantes and maybe also on Tombstone?
So Tombstone and patented lands are almost nothing, like $1,000 plus or minus.
Super.
Cervantes, the holding costs in Mexico have risen in recent years, and once we receive the formal titles to the rest of the surrounding lands to the core block, our holding costs will rise to around $20,000 or $30,000 a year. So again, very, very doable. Not anything that would chase anybody away.
Okay. Fritz has 2 questions. How much will you spend into exploration this year? And how much money would you need in total until the first resource estimate?
Well, of course, at Tombstone, we're budgeting about 700,000 Canadian on the first phase of drilling to test the 2 types of targets, the near-surface bulk tonnage epithermal around the contention pit, and the deeper CRD type targets that we showed you in the geophysics, and in which we also have a Santa Fe drill hole in. So that $700,000 is going to be exclusively to chase Tombstone. That'll actually vest our 75% interest, and we'll see if we can pick up a full 100% after that. So that takes us to about November of this year. That still leaves a chunk of money in the treasury. And so depending on our results at Tombstone, if we're as successful as we hope we're going to be, then we roll straight into a phase 2 program. And it would be in the order of $1 million, which should be already in the treasury. And that would roll us through next year, drilling out a resource. So no resource this year, but potentially next year.
Great. Paul from Frankfurt is asking, as the company is still small and young, of course, the next milestone for you is really the financing. When do you intend to close it? And can you, let's say, elaborate a bit more on your main investors? As we saw in the presentation already, Kerr has 5%, which I see is very important. How did Kerr come onto the 5%? And yeah, let's say, what is management share and what other, let's say, well-known or large investors do you have already?
Good question. We were in the final stages of negotiating a joint venture agreement on Cervantes with Cooke in 2016 when we had a stockbroker tell us that it would be better if we went public and just did the drilling ourselves. And so in late 2016, early 2017, I phoned up Cooke and I said, I have good news and I have bad news. And the bad news is we've decided to go public, so we're not doing the joint venture. And the good news is if you want to have 9.9% of the company, we will offer you that in the IPO. And so that's how Cooke took their initial 9.9% stake. Now they've since diluted down to about 5%, and we're still talking to them about participating in this current offering. I currently own 8% of the company, and I'm doing 10% of the offering. So I'm doing $300,000 myself. There are 3 gentlemen in Europe who control about 16% of the company. So when you add it up, 8 plus 5 plus 16, there's over 30% of the company in what, 5 hands. So we have a good stock structure, very strong shareholders, capable of writing checks for this type of home run play. And we've actually had some interest from majors already. I had a conference call with, I won't name the major this week, but they also wanted to see if there was a possibility to come in on a joint venture, and we basically said no. Be patient. Your opportunity will come at a much higher price.
Yes, of course, much higher prices are always appreciated. Fritz is asking, I love that. Is this an early endeavor story?
Well, now keep in mind the business model is very different. Endeavor went to Mexico looking for mature or strategic silver gold assets that already had fully built and permitted infrastructure. It was a great story, and it allowed us to generate a 10-bagger. Actually, more than that. I think it was at the top was like a 30-bagger. So yes, it can deliver those types of returns, but in a different business model. This is straight exploration, looking for something that's large enough to attract a large company.
Great. As Rainer from Frankfurt has always the standard question, and he's already writing that I'm smiling on that. But Rainer, the company is already public, of course, it's listed. But he's asking about some more financial data. Do we find everything on CEDAR, I presume, right?
Oh, yes, of course. It's a public company.
Okay, great, fantastic. Yeah, then question from my side now, as I'm still waiting here for some people to write down. Can you give us a bit more of an, let's say, maybe not too technical insight? What is in CRD? It's a copper replacement deposit. Why is this so special, and why are the grades you have are fantastic despite they are looking low? But I think it's only looking low because of the, let's say, yeah, very favorable geology and the rocks you have.
Well, CRDs, carbonate replacement deposits, kind of sit in the model between the large but low-grade porphyry deposits and the small but high-grade vein deposits. So when we talk about epithermal veins, they're the mineralization related to a volcano or an intrusion that are the farthest distant from the actual intrusion. The mineralization is deposited up structures and fault zones a far distance, sometimes kilometers, from the intrusive body. The porphyry deposits are usually located right inside the porphyry body, and those tend to be very low grade but very massive tonnage, billion tons, 2 billion tons. CRDs are basically the deposits sitting in between the porphyries in the intrusions and the veins far distant from the intrusions. They're simply sitting typically outside the walls of the intrusions at higher temperature and higher grade. So if a porphyry is 1 billion tons of 0.5% copper and 0.5 gram gold, and veins are 2 to 10 million tons of call it 5 to 10 grams of gold, or 200 to 500 grams of silver, the CRDs are kind of a happy compromise between those. They sit in between them. They're typically 10 to 100 million tons. Taylor was 100 million tons of 10% zinc equivalent. And they typically are polymetallic. So you get value from several metals, up to 5 metals: copper, lead, zinc, gold, and silver. So from a major's point of view, usually the epithermal veins are too small. Porphyries are very large. And the perfect size for an emerging major is the CRDs. And because they're polymetallic, you're kind of protected from the commodity cycle to a certain extent, because if copper, lead, and zinc are down, gold and silver are up. If gold and silver are down, copper, lead, and zinc are up. So the rationale for going after CRDs is that they're a good size, they're a good grade, and they're polymetallic, so you're somewhat protected from the commodity price cycle.
Great. If we can just move on with the metallurgy then, because we saw you did already some bottle roll tests and stuff like this, and I think it was like 85% recovery rate here in the first instant. Do you think, first of all, there's room for improvement on the one hand, and on the other hand, do you think that this is like for a future possible production scenario, can you use fully standardized methods?
Yes, this was just a first pass metallurgical test to just see, does the gold come out in a coarse crush? Does the gold come out in 24 hours? That was really the question we were trying to answer. The short answer was yes, up to 85% comes out in a coarse crush in 24 hours. Now, a heap leach is not 24 hours, it's months. And there are various crush sizes you can put on a heap. You can go down as little as a 1/4 inch if you want, or up to an inch, depending on the characteristics of the ore. So all of that detailed type metallurgy has not yet been done, but the early indications are very good.
Great. And copper would be, let's say, produced as a concentrate, or how would that work? Meaning also standardized.
I described the California zone, which we already drilled, as the oxidized gold cap to a porphyry copper gold system. And as you get down below 150 meters, then you're getting from the oxide zone into the sulfides, the original sulfides that haven't been altered by rainwater. When we talk about oxidized zone near surface, it's just the effect of rainwater over tens of thousands of years, oxidizing the sulfides into basically rust, if you will, iron oxides. Below that area of oxidation, the original sulfide porphyry deposition is still there. And we haven't tested it with drilling yet. And at the bottoms of our holes, we were getting 0.1% copper, 0.15% copper. And our holes are only 150 to 200 meters deep, drilled on an angle. So the vertically 150 meters was the maximum depth that we tested in our drill program. That geophysical anomaly I showed you goes down 500 meters, still going strong. It actually gets stronger at 500 meters.
Okay, fantastic. Again, a question from our finance guy, Rainer. Who are your auditors?
We use a small company, Smith LP, here in town, and they're considered to be a mid-sized auditor in Western Canada. They have very large mining practice, dozens of mining companies under their audit, and Aztec is one of them.
So they're well known.
Well known.
Yeah, super. Then again, Fritz, there are a couple of large neighbors. Would it be possible to use their infrastructure to develop this project and also to get it into production, maybe?
We're hoping that what we find is so big we don't need anybody else.
That's great. But let's stay for a second with the infrastructure. As Fritz is right, you have fantastic neighbors. So, but what looks the infrastructure on your property directly? Let's say water rights. What is about with surface rights? What does it look with the communities, power, roads, all that kind of stuff, and workforce, of course.
Okay, so the properties, if you recall from the map, are immediately south of the town of Tucson and right off of a paved highway. So the access couldn't be better. The main issue, actually, of being close to a town is that if we were to succeed in a shallow open pit discovery, then we'd have to do something about the noise and vibrations from mining in a pit so close to town. It was already done, obviously, there's a pit there. But if we wanted to expand the pit, we would have to take into consideration, and there are many ways to do that. You can use what's called blasting mats to cover up the areas that you're blasting so that there's no rock flying around. You could do the blasts at the times of day when it doesn't disturb the local residents. And to be honest, Tombstone's turned into a tourist town. And it would be a wonderful addition to the tourist agenda. In fact, there's a small tourist mine right on the outskirts of town called the Goodenough Mine. And when we, as geologists, did a tour of that mine, we really had our eyes opened up because there's CRD mineralization right in the tourist mine.
Wow, that's fantastic. So that means everything is, let's say, there, and probably that would save you for the future a lot of money, right?
Oh, yes. Listen, a desirable place to live. It's not just Tombstone. Within 20 minutes, you can drive to Benson or Nogales. Within an hour, you can drive to Tucson. And the location is fantastic. We have water wells on the property. Clearly, when it comes to permitting, patents are a lot easier than BLM land. But for anything that goes beyond the limits of the property, such as water, we would have a more formal water permitting process. There is, however, an entire valley filled with water adjacent to Tombstone, so we don't see any issue using the water.
Great. Fritz has another question. What salaries do you have? Meaning, what are your G&A costs and how does that look like?
G&A has been pretty small. We've been running the company at about $30,000 a month, so what's 400,000 a year Canadian.
Wow, that is really super small.
Yeah,
like that. So that means the money goes really in the ground.
Oh yes, yeah. We spent over $2 million drilling Cervantes. You've seen all of the geology and geochemistry and geophysical work that we've done on both projects. Now our focus is drilling.
Fantastic. With Cervantes and Tombstone, I mean, those are two large projects for sure. Could you imagine, let's say, to enlarge this outside the project boundaries? Meaning, do you think there will be room for more expansion for, let's say, future exploration? Or do you say, no, let's say for this year and next year, we have enough to do with those two projects?
We have all the land that we want at Cervantes. We're in the middle of negotiating to acquire all the land that we want at Tombstone. And, you know, my ideal concept for an exploration company is actually 3 projects because we are in a high-risk business. And even if we find mineralization at Cervantes and Tombstone, there's never any guarantee it's economic until you do all the studies. So I like to have 3 different cracks at it. And these are truly home-run projects. You know, if we hit, we could hit big.
Okay, fantastic. I think that was a great final sentence. If we hit big, I love to hear that, of course. As I do not see here, just let me check that I did not miss somebody. No, that looks good. No more questions. That is fantastic. And we are anyway at 45 minutes almost. So Bradford, thank you very much for this great presentation and also answering all the questions. As said, the private placement is still open. I'm allowed to say that, you're not. So if somebody wants to participate, please send us an email and we can forward you then, of course, the documents. Yeah, so I wish you all the best, Bradford. Thank you very much. And I'm pretty sure we talk quite soon.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was our virtual roadshow with Bradford Cooke, the chairman of Aztec Minerals. Thank you very much for participating. The replay of the roadshow, of this virtual roadshow today, will be available in approximately 2 days at Commodity TV. Also, all our other roadshows we held so far are really available there, also on our YouTube channel. And already I see a question, when do we meet us personally again? Ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea because we just heard that a new swine virus is coming from China. So viruses over viruses, we don't know what the travel will be. Our hope is by October, November that we can start again with personal roadshows because we love to meet you all personally with a good glass of wine, some food, and of course with exceptional companies. So stay healthy, ladies and gentlemen. Our next virtual roadshow is tomorrow, purely in German with Osisko Gold Royalties. And next week on 9th July, we have Treasury Metals. And then we are also pausing for a little summer break. So I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Stay healthy and take care. Thanks and bye-bye. And Bradford, have a nice day to you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao. Thanks.